Hi, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Mess Moments. Beth is coming to you live from the set of Sex and the City reboot.
Yeah, I am here to play, I was going to say Kristen Wiig's character, but...
Okay, they really did remake it then. Holy shit. Kristen Wiig's in the new Sex and the City.
I'm here to play Charlotte. Not Kristen Wiig. First of all, Kristen Wiig was not in Sex and the City. Secondly,
No.
what was I trying to say? Who's the actress who played Charlotte?
I'm a bad gay. What can I say?
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I've only seen like 2 episodes of Sex and the City, so I'm also a bad queer.
Never, ever seen an episode of Sex and the City, but I know it's culturally relevant. But yes, Beth is live from New York City. She's the only person in her apartment complex right now.
That's right. I'm the only person in my building. Yeah. So today I was working up on the roof for a while, didn't have to worry about anybody else. And in the moment that I was singing to myself, like full on singing in the middle, like on a roof in the middle of New York City, all of a sudden I looked over and there was just like a woman on the neighboring roof looking at me. And I was like, yeah. Hi.
What did she do?
She just awkwardly waved and then walked away. I was like I'm sorry that you can't handle these vocals, honey, because they're sick. No.
And then you proceeded to go beat her ass.
Yeah, I jumped roofs. I pulled on I was just like, get over here.
You're in New York now, so you have to.
Yeah, there's a part of being in New York where you have to be equally talented, but then also have to be willing to beat up anybody who crosses your path.
It's called the concrete jungle for a reason. And Mama, you're a predator.
There are no omnivores here. We're all carnivores. And by omnivore, I meant to say herbivore. Except for I fully live in Brooklyn, which is just full of herbivores. So I don't know what I'm saying.
There's a lot of vegetarians out there.
Yeah, a lot of vegans. I actually live right around the corner. I'm like 15 steps away from a vegan cafe.
Okay, so we're going to find your address and stalk you. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, if it was only that easy, because there are multiple places in Brooklyn to find a vegan cafe.
That's true.
Just saying, I've narrowed it down to Brooklyn, which is larger than Manhattan. So have fun.
Yeah, you got this. Everyone's searching all the streets.
Yes.
Speaking of vegan cafes, the Nanny. No, I'm kidding.
Can I just say a side comment?
Yeah.
You look so handsome today.
No, my hair is driving me nuts today.
I was just going to say, I love your hair.
I hate it and I want to chop it all off.
Okay, well, you can do that too. You know, you have body autonomy. You can do whatever you want.
Actually, I think I am going to get my hair cut because, y'all, I'm going to be literally sleeping on that couch that's next to Beth right now. In like less than a week.
That way. Yeah. I mean, it'll be pulled out into a sleeper sofa situation. I'm not going to make him and his husband sleep on just a couch. That's just ridiculous.
We are. It's going to happen. I'll take one back. I'll get into like a fetal position.
Well, I have a full queen size bed to myself in my room. I'm like, bye guys. Good night.
You got this.
You got this.
I'm so excited though. So we are going to be filming, so it's going to be a bit weird. Yeah. What I think we're going to do is we're going to try to film 1 or 2 episodes in advance, maybe 3 if we get lucky. Ooh. So you'll see the actual podcast of us in this location, probably not for a while.
Yeah.
But stay tuned.
I think it'd be a lot of fun. I have a couple of different microphones, so maybe we can set it up so that you and I can both or maybe we just share a mic and we're just sitting very close to each other.
Yeah,
I don't know. It'll be fun. But regardless, I'm really looking forward to the fact I really want us to be able to watch Lost in the Nanny together in person.
Yeah.
Because it's been a lot of fun. For those that don't know, or if you're new to our podcast, what Dylan and I do is, first of all, we are best friends and we watch each other's we're best friends, we're BFFs. We have half of each other's best friend necklaces. I have like a half moon.
I have a tattoo of your asshole on my butt cheek.
But only half my asshole. I have the other tattooed to my
asshole. Can you imagine going to a tattoo parlor and being like, can I get my girlfriend's butthole tattooed on my leg, please?
But like when you say girlfriend, you don't even mean sexual partner, which is even better.
No. I'm imagining now a straight man going into a tattoo parlor, and she's like, "Baby, get my name tattooed." And he's like, "No, I want something more intimate.
Half your asshole.
I want half your asshole tattooed on my thigh." You're off to a great start today.
That is simultaneously the worst and the best thing I've ever heard in my life. I didn't know that could be a possibility, but here we are. But this is the kind of things that you can expect. Like just okay, we are literally virtually hanging out right now. Just imagine how much worse it's going to be in person.
Oh, there's going to be drinks involved. Maybe it's going to be a mess.
Okay, full disclosure, there have been drinks involved for me already tonight, but there's so, okay, but like for disclosure here, I moved to the city not even 6 days ago. And so tonight was my cousin. I have a couple cousins who are moving out of the city, and it's their last night in the city. I share a birthday, which is less than a month away from one of them. And I was like, you didn't even have the decency to move until after our birthday, where we could have had a block party here in Brooklyn. Oh,
how dare they?
Rude. So we went out, we had a couple drinks. So I'm coming to you. I'm not drunk. But let's say I'm like loosened up here we are recording on a Tuesday and we're having a lot of fun.
I did have to tell Beth to put on a shirt. She fully wasn't aware.
I wasn't aware that it's apparently, it's not appropriate for YouTube to be showing your boobs. I don't know. Weird.
Hashtag free the net.
Seriously though, if people who are male identifying could use their nips for public display, why can't women identifying people?
It's true. Call it out. Just saying. Who would be down for free the nipple? Fran Drescher.
100%. And but you know what we haven't done yet is actually properly introduce ourselves. So we're like literally 16 episodes into the show, and we don't introduce ourselves until like, by the way, thank you for listening, and also this is who I am. Like. So for those that are listening and just joining us for the first time, my name is Beth Dixon, also known as Augusta Wind 11. And you can find me Augusta Wind 11 on all social media platforms, including twitch.tv. The Nanny is my favorite show of all time, but I've never seen Dylan's favorite show, which is Lost. Dylan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is 8-Bit Dylan online, or Dylan Zahner in person. And I am also a huge fan of Lost, but not ever seen The Nanny. So we decided that we'd make this hot mess moment of a podcast in order to cover each other's favorite shows for the very first time. So if you're listening for the very first time, you are getting a brand new experience, an unspoiled experience, our raw, visceral takes of these shows. Visceral, without any spoilers whatsoever. I hope you're coming along for the ride, watching along with us if you want, or if you've already seen one or two of these shows, you can recollect with us as we go over the show.
It's a lot of fun too, because obviously, just like these shows have nothing really to do with each other, Dylan and I have no business being friends.
You're like, I hate the bitch.
I just thought it'd be funny to say that, and I was right.
Wait, do you remember what's that meme of that girl? It's like, and you're a fucking ugly, dusty, crusty bitch. Like that little girl that like calls out that gay guy.
I have never seen that, but I need to. That's amazing. And you're a fucking ugly, crusty bitch.
It's so good. It's like this guy that's like being sassy with this little girl, and the girl just goes in on him. And he's like, oh wow, okay.
So she read him to filth. He thought he was bringing the library to the table, and she's like, I read every book.
She's like, call me Biblioteca Mama, because I am here.
Shut up, Biblioteca. Did you take Spanish in high school?
I did.
Okay.
Oh, fun fact. Wait, I have a funny story. I know we're 10 minutes in. Fun story.
Okay.
So my mom. Okay, wait. I took Spanish in middle school and high school.
Madre. Okay.
Yeah. Mi madre es. She is, Mama. She is the moment. Momento.
El momento.
Mi madre es momento.
El momento.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So I was taking Spanish in middle school, and we all had to have nicknames. I don't know why. The teacher decided that she would give us.
Wait. Is it just Spanish names?
Yes.
Oh, okay. We did that too. We did that.
Yeah. So she had us like have like either the Spanish version of what our name would be,
Mm-hmm.
or we would take up a nickname. So I took Nacho.
Literally there is one person in every class who chose the name Nacho.
I did not select it. It was
you
given
didn't.
to me.
Okay,
no.
This is important information.
Yeah. So she randomly gave out the name, so I got Nacho, and she was like, "I need class. What should mine be?"
Oh, she let you choose her name?
Yeah, like her nickname, because she also wanted a nickname, and I suggested Mamacita. And now there's a backstory. For those that don't speak Spanish, Mamacita is a term you would say to a woman when you're calling her like hot, sexy. It is not something you say it to like your professor or your teacher. But young Dylan only knew what Mamacita meant because my mom hung out with a bunch of lesbians that she used to play billiards with, and they used to nickname her Mamacita because they all wanted to have sex with my mom. And so I heard the term Mamacita all the time, thinking it meant mother. And I thought they were calling my mom mother. And so I go to my teacher.
Poor summer child.
Yeah, I was so innocent. This is also the same year that I didn't know what BJ meant. And I openly in the hallways called a girl, "What's up, BJ Betty?" I had no idea what it meant.
You have fully called me that like several times.
BJ Beth.
Hey, BJ Beth.
So the professor was like, "Where did you hear this term?" And I said, "My mom." I was like, all my mom's friends call my mom this." And she busted out laughing in the fucking, and everyone who could speak Spanish that was in the class that was trying to get an easy A by taking Spanish again, were all laughing their ass off because they knew
I would have laughed my ass at you.
And I didn't know what it meant. And she's like, "That is not the term that you think it means." And then she just left it at that. It was so funny.
Dead. What was okay? So you were Nacho. Were you any other name, or was it always Nacho every single year?
There was only 1 year that we had that because we had different professors.
You only had to take time out.
No. I took Spanish only in 7th grade, 8th grade, and then all of high school. But only one professor in 7th grade made us have nicknames.
Oh, that's okay. So in New York State, we were required to take, so in my school district, 6th grade was either in elementary school or in middle school. My family chose to send me to middle school. So I was one of like 50 kids out of what ended up being 130 kids that went to middle school. And I took 6th grade Spanish then. And then I took 7th, 8th, all through 9th through 12, all that kind of stuff. And every year, except for 1 year, I was Isabel, which is Elizabeth in Spanish. Except for 1 year, I chose to be Carmen. And so when I went, my family and I, we had all saved up money and we went to Cozumel, Mexico for spring break 1 year. It was just, so my parents were both educators. So they had the same like vacations that I did.
Yeah.
And we went to Cozumel and I was Isabel to all of the staff. So I tried really hard when I was there because I was 16, 17, had been taking a few years of Spanish. And I tried to speak as much Spanish as I could to the hotel staff that were there. And
they're all everybody like, fucking white girl.
They're like, this little white girl. Actually, they loved it because they were like, rarely did like, the majority of people who came through were like middle class, upper middle class, and upper class, like white people who like didn't even attempt to speak Spanish. So, but I did. And in New York State, they mostly teach for standardized testing, Central American Spanish versus Spanish. España Spanish. So I was speaking Mexican Spanish for the most part. So I tried really hard to communicate with them because for those that don't know, I actually went to college thinking I was going to become a Spanish teacher. That's what I wanted to do when I went to college. And I then took 0 Spanish classes. I actually took 2 weeks of Spanish, dropped out and took beginning acting instead of Spanish, and 0 education classes. So clearly did not go down that path when I got to college. But when I went down there, I really wanted to use this as an opportunity to try to like perfect my Spanish for the week I was down there. So whenever the staff clearly knew that I was trying really hard, and they refused to talk to me in English. They only would talk to me in Spanish.
Nice.
It was a lot of fun. But it also meant that they started doing like some really special.
Clearly knew that I was trying really hard and he refused to talk to me as. Sabía que me estaba esforzando mucho y se negó a hablar conmigo.
What is Siri?
Siri, the way I'm drunk right now, and you did. No, just kidding. I'm not drunk. I was like, what was that? Did you hear that?
Yeah, that was weird. What
was
the
that
fuck?
Crystal clear on your end?
It was crystal clear.
Girl, Siri was like, I want to join this conversation.
It was literally more crystal clear than you were. That's how crystal clear it was.
Girl, Siri said, I want in on this. But basically when I got there, they refused to speak English to me. And so everybody in my family was called like Isabel's tío, Isabel's like, parents or whatever. And it was just like super funny. So they ended up giving us like more opportunities and such because like I tried. And then I was trying to like, they could see that I was trying to teach my parents how to say things in Spanish as well. And it was just like super cute. They were like the best staff of all time at this like little resort that we were at.
Cool.
Yeah. And so ever since then, what was really cool about this, and I encourage anybody who ever does any trip to any place in the Caribbean or Mexico or anything like that, one of the things my family has started to do, which has made a huge impact, and this has nothing to do with our podcast, but I would just like to put it out there, is that we purposely bring things like coloring books and color pencils and sneakers and those kind of things that we can leave as tips so that the resort staff can bring it home to either their families or the community and like spread it to like the children, to their families and those kind of things. So like we learned that because I was speaking Spanish with them and they were telling us about the things that, yes, tips are great, but here's the other things that we don't have as much access to because of tourist culture or such thing. So it's actually worked out really well. So like my ability to try to speak Spanish with them ended up working in something that has always stuck with my family every time they have vacation places, which is fun.
That's great to know. That's very interesting. Speaking of Spanish, no, I'm kidding.
Speaking of Spanish, the Nanny, which has nothing to do with Spanish. Yeah.
No, let's get into it. Because we're 18 minutes in and we haven't even started talking about the Nanny.
Okay, we got this.
We're great at this.
We got this. Yes.
It's time for us to cover The Nanny, episode 17. Stop the wedding. I want to get off.
She was there. That's how she became the nanny.
And boy, do I. No.
Oh, mama, do I want to get off?
Do I want?
So this episode, we are introduced to Jocelyn, who is Maxwell's sister and played by the infamous Twiggy. International supermodel Twiggy.
Yes.
And
like one of the most famous models of all time.
Literally, there are fashion trends because of Twiggy.
There are makeup twins. There are makeup twins. There are makeup trends because of Twiggy. That kind of like really dotted lower lash line is all a Twiggy look. The 60s in general, in the early 70s, you think about Twiggy in her modeling days.
Yeah, Twiggy's an icon. So it was really fun to see that not only is Twiggy playing a guest star role, she is playing a family member of Maxwell's, which means maybe we'll see Twiggy show up again. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe if there's a wedding, it'd be kind of cool to see Twiggy at the wedding. But Jocelyn is introduced into the show, and I'm going to give a general synopsis of the episode, and we can pick apart specific pieces of it.
Yep.
So the general plot of this episode is that Jocelyn is coming to visit Maxwell to let him know, or to meet her fiance. Is it?
Yes.
The Duke.
Who's a Duke? Yep.
Yeah, he is a Duke. His name is Nigel.
Mm-hmm.
And so Nigel and Jocelyn's relationship seems a bit weird. They don't seem to actually like care for each other a lot. And Fran very quickly picks up on the fact that Jocelyn may have feelings for Lester, the chauffeur, and Lester may have feelings for Jocelyn.
Correct.
Hilarity ensues, which we'll go over, but a lot of hilarity ensues to the point where the Duke, Nigel, and Jocelyn decide to get married right there that weekend. And Fran may or may not have told Lester about maybe going for his girl. And so Lester makes a move on Jocelyn, and Jocelyn accepts with open arms.
On her wedding day.
On her wedding day. And Lester then proposes to Jocelyn, and they get married at the wedding. So that's the basic synopsis of this episode. And there's a few things I want to point out. One is, you said that this was a Maxwell-centered episode. I don't think it is.
No. So what I said was, if you're looking at the main characters, I feel like it is a Maxwell-centered episode. But I don't. Sense. Yeah, the reason why I said that was more for like out of the remaining, including this episode, 6 episodes of of season 1. I truly think that this gives you more of an indication of the kind of lifestyle that Maxwell grew up with, because you're seeing really it's about his baby sister and her love life and how that reflects on him. You also see a lot of how Fran asserts herself into this situation. So in that sense, I would like to kind of correct myself in saying that while this is somewhat of a Maxwell-centered episode, you get a lot of how like Fran development here too.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done. And I really liked this episode. I thought it was well put together. It had a great beginning, middle, and end. Had some really funny moments in it. I would probably give it an 8 out of 10.
Wow, solid.
I thought it was really, really good. I don't know if it's an episode I would remember if Twiggy was not the sister. So I think the fact that Twiggy, who is a international celebrity, guest starring in this episode is kind of what makes this one memorable. But girl, there is so much fashion happening this episode.
It's a lot. And before we get into the fashion, I just want to bring a little bit of background into Twiggy and like, why is it Twiggy who's in this episode? So for those that don't know, when Fran Drescher was trying to pitch the idea of this show, she was actually in England babysitting Twiggy's friends. Twiggy is a friend of Fran's. And when she was there, she thought it was funny that Twiggy, who had more of an upper class and was raising upper class girls in England, had a very big discrepancy in socioeconomic status of like what she grew up with.
I think you may have already told the story.
Potentially, yeah. And so basically that's when she came up with the idea of like, oh my God, what if I was in charge of raising like kids that were grown up with this English sense of class? Because for those that don't understand or know, in England and in the greater UK, class is very much a pride point. So if you grew up and you were born into the upper class, you kind of try to stick within what you are known for upper class. Middle class is the same way, and working class is very proud. And like, I'm proud that my parents worked in the coal mines or on the tube or whatever the case is. In the US, we have this idea of like, you're proud of moving up in socioeconomic class. In the UK, there's a sense of you're proud of wherever your family came from and trying to maintain some of those cultural standpoints. So Fran always thought it would be interesting. She's like, what if I'm like this like poor socioeconomic Jewish woman from Queens who is like asserted herself into like essentially this more traditional English American household. So a lot of that came from when she was babysitting Twiggy's family. And then on her way back, she happened to be on a plane with Jeff Zucker, who was the president of CBS at the time. And he had no choice but to listen to her as she pitched her show. So Twiggy coming onto the show was kind of like closing a circle there, where like a bookend, where, she was like, okay, great, Twiggy, you would like helps me come up with the show with your family. Now you get to play Maxwell, who basically symbolizes your family. You play Maxwell's younger sister. So just for background information, I always thought that was a little fun to bring up.
Yeah, no,
reiterate.
No. I think it's really cool. It also, I kind of got that vibe too. Like the dynamic of Twiggy being there felt solid. It didn't feel like she was forced into the show. I think you can kind of tell the relationship between Fran and Twiggy a bit in this episode because they just riff off each other really well and they play off each other really well. So it's really cool to like see that dynamic play out on screen. So I want to talk about some of the fashion moments in this episode that really stood out to me. I wrote down so many outfits. It was kind of ridiculous. Okay. So the first one was this like sun patterned flower vest, which was a new vest that we had not seen yet. That's at the like very beginning of the episode. Not my outfit of the episode, but I really like that Fran is living her vest fantasy over season 1. She is just
vests were huge in the 90s, especially for women. And I love that Fran's character, Fran, like elevates what the vest style was to being something that like is unexpected or a little outside of the box. And it like provides its own sense of fashion and like something that you just like attach to Fran's character.
No, absolutely. And this one was super cute. Another one that I want to call out is the newspaper pink outfit. While cute, I have to dock it. It was not tailored well on her body. It was so boxy. It looked uncomfortable to wear, but it looked cute. I really love the pattern on it.
So the reason why I love that outfit so much on Fran is because we start to see, this is really the beginning of what we will eventually see as many of these like upper and lower, like jacket and skirt kind of combos that are like really outside of the box. Like you have newspaper print, or you have fruit print, or you have all these different kinds of prints that are just like not what you would expect, leopard print, whatever, that are tops and bottoms. And this to me is so iconic for her because we get to see the beginning of what Fran's style eventually evolves into.
Yeah. It's so hard to pick an outfit of the episode because there's just so many outfits.
There are so many outfits.
That newspaper pink outfit was really, really cute. I also want to call out, there was this like random dress that wasn't even in there for very long. It was like a red dress with like the rope pattern, like the the feathering. That one was super cute.
The front and the back where it had like the X's and such on it.
Yeah, and it had like a heart-shaped top.
Yeah.
That one was super cute. And then there was the frilly red, white, and pink corset, which is my outfit of the episode.
Ooh,
because she looked very cute in it. It like married the unusual style of Fran, but like elevated it to an extent, and it was very well fitted onto her body. So
she looked really good. There's like, this is honestly where I think we start to see, we're at the end of season 1. We only have a couple episodes left. This is probably about the time where the CBS studio realized that they had a hit on their hands. Yeah. And I know that from listening to various different interviews and such that they really didn't reach their audience until the summer reruns, but I think they probably started to get their audience at the end of the season, and then the audience clamored on to the summer reruns of everything. So I think we're about to see like, oh, okay, this is what we wanted Fran to be. We wanted Fran to be somebody who like, for inexplicable reasons, had an incredible, unique sense of fashion and had these wonderful outfits, regardless of the fact that she was a household nanny and like was making no money. So this is what I think, like this episode in particular, as we watched it together, I was reflecting upon the fact that like, this is really when we're starting to see Fran's fashion come out to play.
For sure. And it's top notch. I'm loving it. These last 2 episodes have just been filled with fashion. It's just been
they really have
overflowing of fashion. Let the fashion fill you. Okay.
They've also, honestly, I feel like these past 2 episodes, like this one was kind of a cutesy, kitschy kind of episode where like, it's not a deep kind of plot, but it gives you an idea of the kind of like storylines and, you know, conflicts that they're going to cover in a sitcom where it's not that deep of an issue, but it's enough that it sets you up for this kind of campy, fun sitcom-y experience. And I feel like this is when they're really starting to find their writing stride as well.
Absolutely. And I'll now like go back to the beginning of the episode. We can talk about like specific parts of it that we really like.
Yep.
So I love, I can't remember when there was this joke where Gracie's like hooked a really big fish. And it was so well timed. And the way that Gracie's face looks like she's so proud of herself for saying the joke and everyone's laughing was fucking adorable.
It was really cute. So basically what happens is that apparently Gracie asks them, we have Jocelyn, who's her aunt, and the Duke, Nigel, who are sitting at the table. And she's asked Nigel, are you a fisherman? And Jocelyn says, no, why? And she said, because Fran says that you hooked a really big fish.
And then the way Fran just like,
oh, girl, you better shut the fuck up. That's
and the way that Gracie's face is like,
I said it.
Yeah.
I'm a part of because like, don't you know, everybody knows that kid, like, or we were that kid that tried really hard to be a part of an adult conversation at a young age, not understanding the impact we were making on conversations.
Yes. It was so cute. I loved it. And it's also a great, a great reflection of Fran's character where Fran's just like, ooh, girl, you got the Duke, get it. Like,
but I also love that like Fran is telling this to like the children as if like maybe Maggie would get it, but like Brighton and Grace are young. So she's just like, girl, let me tell you some tea. I know that you are 7 and you don't understand what I'm saying.
Your aunt is hitting it with the Duke. Okay?
Your aunt is getting some money out of this situation.
Clearly, like throughout the episode, we see that the Duke and Jocelyn, they don't really care for each other that much. They're very cold to one another. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was very interesting that, and I guess this kind of also reflects why I rated this an 8.
Sure.
Because we don't get a lot about Jocelyn until the very end, where Jocelyn's motivations seem so strange here. Same with Nigel's, because Nigel doesn't seem to really care for Jocelyn that much. He doesn't really fight for her at the end of the episode. And I'm like, you're a Duke. You can get whoever you want. Like, what about Jocelyn is like so special? And likewise with Jocelyn, who's come from money. So she's not in it for the money. She's already rich, it seems.
I would argue that she is in for the money. I think that, you know, the rich always look for ways to be richer, right? And I think that especially within the UK culture where there's a sense of like entitlement that comes with being, it's not just about rich. It's like, what is your status? And the fact that she'd be marrying a Duke would be like entering essentially into some sort of royalty. So I do think that there is a status, there is a richness, there is some kind of that's in with her. I feel like for him, it's like I'm marrying a woman of class, and clearly Jocelyn is beautiful. So I think that it's more about, okay, she's beauty and she has class, so therefore I'm interested.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure, based off of how Twiggy was playing the character, if it was more so meant to be that Jocelyn is just aloof and is just kind of like going with the flow. And she's like, oh, I found this Duke and I'm just going to roll with it. We're going to see if this works or not. And she's like kind of oblivious to Lester, who is like clearly someone she loves, but she doesn't understand her feelings. I didn't know like whether it was that approach or if it was like more, I'm in this because I want money. Duke's got power. And so I think that's why I rated it like an 8. Because I like, while the episode is both a Fran and a Maxwell like centered episode, Jocelyn takes up a huge portion of it. And I'm kind of confused by Jocelyn. Now don't get me wrong, I love Jocelyn on screen. She was hilarious.
Sure.
Twiggy's great. So then there's this big kind of lore dump, which weird way to put it, for Fran.
Lore dump.
It just took a giant dump of lore.
Bam.
That Fran shits. No, I'm just kidding. That Fran's backstory. Beth's face. That Fran used to be a head marriage consultant.
Yeah.
And that's something that we did not know. We know she worked at a bridal shop, but we did not know that she was a head marriage consultant at one point, which is a cool little backstory that we get on Fran here.
Mm-hmm.
And Fran quickly puts it to use. She immediately goes into marriage planning mode when she learns that Nigel and Jocelyn, I'm always going to forget their names.
No worries.
Nigel and Jocelyn.
You should not forget Nigel's name.
No. I feel weird saying Nigel because it's my husband's name.
And that's exactly why I was going to say you should not forget Nigel's name. Now, I'm going to give you a tidbit, which is not really a spoiler, but it is a spoiler, which is to say that Maxwell and Jocelyn have a third sibling whose name is actually Nigel. And this doesn't come out until season 3 or 4, but it is one of those situations where I think it's funny where it's like clearly the writers had no sense of like originality and they're like, let's just use the name Nigel again. But every time I listen to the name Nigel, I'm either thinking your husband, Maxwell and Jocelyn's brother, or Jocelyn's potential husband in this episode. So it's just fun. Or Nigel Thornberry. So those are the 4 Nigels I ever think of.
Those are the only 4 Nigels that exist in the world, actually.
Exactly. So. Yes. It is a unique enough name that it can be narrowed down to 3 fictional characters and your husband.
Okay, wait. Side note, I remember when I first started dating a Nigel, I could not stop comparing him to Nigel Thornberry.
Shut up.
Only because of the fucking name. And I was like, whenever I would text Nigel, I'm like, I feel like I'm dating Nigel Thornberry.
Okay, can I be 100% honest with you? I know I've already told Nigel this himself, but and I think I literally told him this like a month or 2 ago tops.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I felt like for a long time that wasn't his real name.
What?
I felt like this was just some kind of weird, because I had never met anybody named Nigel, so I just figured it was just like some kind of weird fake alien.
He's like, my name's actually Patrick.
My name's Adam.
Yeah, I'm Adam, guys.
But I go by Nigel. It was just really funny to me. And then the more I realized, literally for 9 months of my life, I was convinced.
Oh, wow.
I had met you guys at DragCon in 2018, and I was still convinced this was a front of a name.
It's all a facade. He's not even gay. He's
a straight. And he is still ace.
He is still ace, but he's
ace, but he's straight, and his name is Adam. Yeah. But it was just really funny to me that I don't know why, but in the back of my head, I was like, this has got to be some kind of nickname. And I don't know why. It's so funny now because as I look back, I'm like, why would I think that? It's not like Nigel's some kind of weird name. It's just I'd never known somebody actually named Nigel before. Same. So I just was like, all right, so I guess it's fake. That's where my mind went to.
I mean, I compared my soon to be at that point husband to be Nigel Thornberry. So I think we are in similar camps.
At least when I said Nigel, I was comparing him to a fake Duke or a fake Rich Sheffield. So I'm just putting it out there. I did think Nigel Thornberry at the very least, but he was the 3rd place out of the fictional Nigels.
And he was number 1 for me, baby. That nose.
That nose and that long mustache.
Nigel got that red
mustache.
Nigel got that nose game on point. That's good.
Okay, time out though. Serious though. Your husband has a really cute nose.
He does. He has a very cute nose.
I have to say, okay, I randomly, the second day I'm here in New York, I go out to a restaurant with Tyler Lyons, who is my co-host for My Weekly Meltdown.
Yeah.
And the waitress came up to us and she went, I'm sorry if this is really inappropriate, but I just have to say both of you have beautiful noses.
What?
And I just want it known. I was so touched. I literally went, oh, thank you. Like that. It must have came off so fake, but I was like,
Bitch, my nose. Thank you.
And I was like, I've literally been so self-conscious of my nose for so many years. So the fact that some random woman who has no bearing in my life was just like, here's your check, but also your nose looks beautiful. I was like, yes.
Oh you, my God.
And Tyler was like, thank you.
He's like, bitch, yes, I know my nose is hot.
And he went, No, just kidding.
He actually sneezed on her.
He went, you like this nose? A chew, bitch.
Chew. Sorry, we're getting so derailed. We're talking about
sorry,
noses.
my bad.
So then when we learn that Fran is the head marriage consultant, there is a joke in the next part that did not age well with Princess Diana.
It sure did not.
And it didn't at the time, I'm sure, as well, because
it was one of those shocking jokes. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of the timeline wise. Princess Di would have died maybe a year or two.
No, like 3-4 years later.
Okay.
This was about the time that she and Charles were getting a divorce.
Okay. That makes sense.
But she was still the people's princess. And a lot of people were still on the side of Diana even after she got divorced from Prince Charles, not Princess Charles. Hey, we just learned something new about Charles. No, so a lot of the people sided with Princess Di because they felt like she was the people's princess. So even after Prince Charles divorced Princess Di, there was still a lot of like support for her.
No, that makes sense.
And she was still a style icon and all those different kinds of things.
Yeah.
Too, so.
Oh my God. A queer icon too. Post leaving of this world. Princess Di is an icon.
Yeah.
But I thought after this scene with like the Princess Diana joke, it was really cool because I love seeing how excited Fran was to plan this wedding. She got so adorable. She was in her element. She seemed to really love that she wasn't a nanny for once and was focused on being a wedding planner.
Well, she gets down to her roots, right? Where she'd been working at a bridal shop. She'd been working with brides for a long time. And as we've already kind of learned from her, like her whole life ambition up until this point was to marry somebody. So it's almost like this has been what her life was built up to be.
Yeah, and I want to talk about this conversation that happens around this like planning where they're talking about when a woman is in love with a man, she should know everything about him and vice versa. And I was thinking back and I was like, I don't think I could answer a lot of these questions about Nigel. And then I was thinking about because in our hierarchy of needs, me needing to know like what's his favorite number is not pertinent to whether or not we are in a healthy relationship.
I'm going to ask you a question. What's my favorite number?
11.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. I was going to say, if you got that wrong, bitch, I would just be like here. It's right underneath my name. It's 11. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Married. Yay.
No, but like I was very curious your take on this conversation because like from one aspect I agree you should know the person that you are wanting to like spend the rest of your life with or get married to, and she started asking these questions like, what's your song, like do you have a song? And I was like, I don't know if Nigel and I have a song, like I don't know if we have ever. If so, it's probably some whack ass shit that we listen to.
It's the Minecraft theme song.
It's KDA.
I think honestly, though, that there's some of this is generational, right? I really think that having a song was very baby boomer, Gen X related. And I think millennials, so there's very different ways that we plan weddings now than like my parents did, or even my cousins who were in Gen X did. And I was saying that, like, for example, something that is really different now is the idea of a photographer. So like a photographer back when my parents got married, or even my older Gen X cousins got married, was really like, who's the person who's using the point and shoot development camera, who's going to like go get it developed at the pharmacy? Like, who's that person versus like now people are spending thousands of dollars on a really good photographer. And like side note, somebody who like helped us out a lot, who's a really good photographer in the New York City area is Tyler Lyons at scratchstudios.co. So if you're interested in New York City or elsewhere, look at him. But seriously, like this idea that like we've really, really changed, and we have to remember this is a 90s sitcom. So this is really Gen X that we're talking about at this point. They're not boobers. My God, baby boomers. They're not boobers. What's up? Actually, they are. There's like, it's like a fine line. This is about the time when like baby boomers / the earlier part of Gen X are really coming into their own. So what we're seeing here is a big difference, right? So what we see from like what made quote unquote a perfect couple, your song. What was your song? The song that you danced to the first time you went out on a date, or the one that you created your own, like that's not a part of the culture anymore when you go out with somebody. Like so many of us are getting involved with like online dating or a variety of different ways. And it's not necessarily the first song that you dance to that you then think about and save in your memory until your wedding day. And then you repeat it again.
Yeah.
So it's a little different here. And that's why I think it's like a little aged at this point. But yeah.
I thought it was pretty aged, and but it helped us understand a little bit more of what Fran sees as love, because I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. That final scene with Fran and Maxwell in the kitchen, where there is like they're just beating us over the head with it. It is painfully obvious that there is a spark between Maxwell and Fran, and almost to the point of the writers confirming that at least Maxwell has feelings for Fran. I'm still not convinced that Fran has feelings for Maxwell. Just based off body language and how the actors played the scene, where Maxwell's just kind of like, yeah, we could totally have sex right now and like fuck. Unless, or you know what I mean? Or I fucked that up, but you know what I mean? Like,
no, I think that's exactly what the words were in that same sentence.
He actually, he
said, oh, fuck.
He's like, oh my God, could you imagine if we like fucked hardcore right now inside this kitchen and you just like bussy blast my hole with your giant rolling pin?
Became my slam piece. Like, definitely.
Fucking slam piece. I love that word.
Why do I like that? Okay, time out. Full on demisexual here. I love the phrase slam piece. I think it's so fucking funny. And for those that like are slam pieces, you better work. I'm so here for you.
Slam piece, pride win.
Yes, please.
That's what we need.
I also think this whole episode is foreshadowing, right?
For sure. Oh my God.
Like, Maxwell's sister falls in love with a staff member who's of a different class.
Yeah.
Okay.
One's in the family, apparently.
Yeah. And that's what I think is like when I think of these last 6 episodes of this season, there's 3 of which that are really plot driven in terms of like setting us up for what are we expecting out of the series. This is one of the 3. The other 3 episodes are just like traditional sitcom, funny, whatever, haha kind of things. The next episode is one of those traditional sitcom, haha, whatever kind of things. It's not something that's necessarily going to drive character development or plot development, but it will be fun. So.
Yeah, I'm again loving the show, loving the season. Is there anything else you wanted to cover? Because
I mean, the most important thing here is, of course, Jocelyn realizes that she's not in love with Lester, but she truly is in love with her chauffeur, as we kind of alluded to just now, and that Lester, her chauffeur, is in love with her. So she ends up marrying Lester at the very end of the episode. And this is important. So it's not necessarily something that comes up all the time in this series, but is very key to the rest of the series. Just putting it out there. It may not be key for a couple seasons, but it's very key.
Oh, and that's what we call spoilerino.
It's not a spoiler. It is just like a remember it, bitch.
Oh, okay. Put it in your notebooks, kids.
That's right. Write it down.
Chapter.
Pocket protector that moment.
a pocket protector that moment.
It
Love
didn't
that.
make sense, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, we're just gonna roll with it.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was the Nanny episode 17. Stop the Wedding. I Want to Get Off. Loved the episode. Thought it was great, and I'm very excited for the last 6 episodes.
MVP, LVP.
My MVP is going to go to Fran for saving the day. She saved Jocelyn's future, and she seemed to be very happy with the results by the end. My LVP is going to go to the Duke, Nigel, for just not giving a shit. He didn't stand up to defend his love at all.
Can't you tell I'm heartbroken?
Yeah. And then he just fucking leaves. His whole
He's like,
family.
I will leave with my head held high, or you can go out the back. Better yet.
Yeah.
And then just turns around and leaves. Yeah.
And then I love that he's got like friends and family that are in the audience that are just chilling, watching.
My favorite part about that is Fran fully coming out and being like, anybody who's on the groom's side, you can collect your presents on the way out.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't talk about Kenny. Kenny comes back.
Yeah, Kenny comes back. Doesn't stand. Yeah, it's not important.
But Kenny still looks too old to be a teenager, in my opinion. But
he looks to me like he could be in his like late 20s or whatever.
I wasn't gonna say that old, but okay.
I meant to say late teens or early 20s. Late 20s is not what I meant to say there.
He looks like he's pushing 29. You know,
he looks like he's about 50. No, I think he looks like he could be like in his first 2 years of college, which is still like not appropriate for dating a 14-year-old girl. But like the big theme there, of course, is that Kenny comes into the house and realizes that he's very much out of like Maggie's socioeconomic league, that he's, working class. Maggie's very rich.
Because the whole point of the episode is that people in Maxwell's family tend to go for people who are below their socioeconomic class. So
and what? Yes.
Yeah. So
you know what, Dylan? I'm really happy that you picked up on the really big hits that they hit you over the head with.
I'm really glad you picked up on the entire fucking point of the episode, Dylan.
I'm really happy that you picked up on like the hammer of which they hit you over the head with. Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome. You're welcome for that.
Thank you for having a head on that shoulder. Thank you.
It sometimes works. Okay. Let's move on. Next up we have Lost, episode 16, Outlaws. Previously on Lost.
Multiple outlaws?
Maybe?
Or outlaw?
No, it's Outlaws.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's the name.
I thought it was outlaw. On a side note, my handwriting is beautiful. Like I literally feel like I had such neat handwriting for this.
You were feeling yourself.
Honestly, this is the most Leo thing I've ever said in my life. That's not true. I've said many Leo things.
I was going to clock that so fast.
You're like, Beth, literally every week you're full of yourself. So therefore you're a Leo.
Yeah, I was like lies upon lies.
Liza Minnelli lies. In the words of Vivacious. First of all, I wish we had recorded this episode reaction.
Oh my God. I was going to point it out. You were shook to your core from this episode.
I literally multiple times almost shat my pants.
Yeah.
Because I was so affected by the noise, what was happening, all those different kinds of things. I'm going to straight up say that this episode was a 9 out of 10 for me. Okay. I thought it was really, really great in terms of character development, specifically for Sawyer. It scared me. It excited me. There was a lot of things and elements to it that I thought were really positive, especially after the past couple of episodes where we've kind of had some roller coaster emotions. I really felt like this one was really good about bringing it back to what I've liked about this series, which is marrying the past with the present and not making it so much like just about the past or just about the present. There was a really good mixture of the two.
Agreed.
So I literally just wrote in the very beginning note was so many feelings and things in 3 minutes. Like we start off this episode with Sawyer's backstory of him as a child where, as we recall from a few episodes ago when his family was affected by, is it a grifter?
So kind of, yeah. So
Yeah.
his family was affected by a man named Sawyer who
Yeah.
stole a bunch of money from Sawyer's father.
Okay.
And we learn in this episode that Sawyer's father then took it out on his wife, who may have been part of the con or may have been conned.
And I think what we kind of knew some of this beforehand. We kind of knew that it was really that Sawyer's mother fell for the con, not so much his father, but used the family money, which probably has, just thinking about the time frame in which we were talking about, men were more likely the breadwinners of the family. So it sounds like the mother invested in this grifter's plan, and basically it's essentially like the grifter embezzled the money, essentially, which isn't the real technical term, but basically encouraged this family to through the seduction of his wife, of Sawyer's father's wife, like really embezzled this money from her. And then he comes home, and what we see in the very beginning is Sawyer as a baby. You hear pounding at the door, which is his father.
It's intense.
It was really intense. Like, I literally was scared shitless. Like, I'm sure my face was shocked as all hell.
You were. For those on the video, you were like this. Yeah, shit. Like the entire like jaw agape, eyes like darting onto the screen.
It was very intense. Like, I really truly felt like I was a fly in the wall. I'm thankfully and very blessed and privileged to have not been somebody affected by domestic violence. But I know people who have been, and I know that it's a very prevalent dilemma in our country and across the world. And it just felt very real. Like, the acting in these scenes in particular was really great. It was really chilling. And I watched this episode, and you see Sawyer's mother hugging, and it just, honestly, it's just like knowing what was going to happen there. We know that Sawyer's mother was murdered by his father, and then his father takes his own life. I got confused in the moment and literally had to have Dylan pause it just to further help me remember the scene or the background properly. Because there's a part of me, I actually think this is denial on my part. I didn't want to believe that it was Sawyer's father that committed these egregious acts. I wanted to think of it as the grifter who came in and killed the mother and then committed suicide. What we see is that Sawyer's mother makes Sawyer go under the bed as a young child and stay there, and regardless of whatever happens. And then you see her open the door to his bedroom, close it, and you hear her screaming for her life and telling her husband to stop. And then he shoots her, kills her. And then you see his feet walk into the room.
Ooh, it's chilling.
It's really chilling. You just assume that he's going to look under the bed. Because first of all, it's not like the covers, the comforter or whatever the topper is on the bed covers that. And it's just awful. It's so chilling.
We're painted the picture of why the dad didn't know that his son was there, because Sawyer's mom mentions to Sawyer that your dad thinks that you're over at your grandparents this weekend. And so that's when...
Oh, I'm going to be 100% honest. I didn't even catch that.
Yeah. So she says that like right away. She's like, hide under the bed. He doesn't even know you're here. He thinks you're at the grandparents this weekend, which is why...
I never understood in that scene why he didn't look under the bed, because...
Yeah.
Not that I'm an experienced, like, weird, like, killer person or whatever, but my assumption would be that he would look under the bed if he doesn't see his son in bed, if he's supposed to be.
Especially he didn't even know his son was there. So that's why he...
And so Sawyer's father sits on his bed, and then you hear a second gunshot, which is when he kills himself.
Yeah.
And it just cuts to the present where Sawyer wakes up, and there is a boar going through his stuff in his tent. And it is intense because it's not like we have any time to really process this flashback, which was clearly a dream that Sawyer is having. We immediately jump into, holy shit, these boars are dangerous. And Sawyer just like grabs a baseball bat, which first of all, where did the baseball bat come
Who
from?
brought a baseball bat with them?
Like, it's not like this was like, oh, someone had a baseball bat in the like this literally came out of nowhere. All of a sudden he has a baseball bat and he hits this boar and he runs out of the tent. And all of a sudden, like as he runs out of the tent, he's shirtless. It runs through like the like little like settlement area, like the camp area, chasing this boar that apparently nobody else can see. And this kind of sets up the rest of the episode, which is that Sawyer has this kind of on and off with this boar for the rest of the episode, which is it kind of left up to the imagination. Is the boar real, or is the boar a manifestation of the things that are left unsettled in Sawyer's past?
Yeah, so there's multiple like theories of what the boar is. So some are like, is it a real boar that is just Sawyer projecting his own past onto the actions of this boar, and making nonsense out of regular actions that a boar would do? Is it there's been theories about, is this the spirit of the guy that ended up that Sawyer ended up murdering back in the day, which we learned in the flashbacks, because you see at the very end of this episode, Sawyer makes a conscious effort not to shoot the boar,
right?
Because he learns it's not worth it. It's not going to solve any problems. The issue is not the boar. The issue is me, and I need to figure out what's wrong with me first in order to fix what the stress that I have in my life right now.
And this is exactly another example of the manifestation of the island, of you tackling the problems outside of the island with the things that maybe you got wrong in your real life that you now have a second chance to potentially like redo, or the things that you didn't have a chance to properly face head on that you have to, right? So we've talked about this with Jack and his father. We've talked about this with Locke and his disability. We've talked about this with Charlie and his addiction and his inability to take accountability for his own actions. We've talked about this with Claire and her pregnancy. We've talked about this with Kate. And now we have the opportunity to finally talk about this with Sawyer, who is one of the more complicated characters, I feel like, of Lost so far.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it makes sense, as per usual, to potentially, this is an episode where I really feel like normally I would say, let's just talk about the flashbacks and then talk about what's happening present day, but they're so married that I think it does talk about, I think it makes sense to talk about things like chronologically throughout the episode. And I took some notes, and I do think that it's important for you to potentially pop in and
I got you, girl.
Hey, girl.
This is a standard viewing night for me, like for us.
Time out. Wait.
This is the Nanny, and then this is Lost.
Can you bring it closer to the camera? You have nice hair and handwriting.
Thank you.
You really do. Sorry, I brought this up to my face, and then it just wasn't ready to settle. That was my problem. Okay, so what we see after this whole situation, there's so many flashbacks for Sawyer. It's not like they happen occasionally. I would almost say that the majority of what we see is actually flashbacks. It's not the present day. So after we see this flashback of Sawyer's childhood, we see him hooking up with a woman and entering his hotel room. And in his hotel room, the lights are off. Oh, go ahead.
There is one key thing that happens before this flashback that I do think is very important. So Sawyer runs out to the jungle after this boar, and he hears whispers.
Yes.
And specifically, you hear, "It'll come back around." In the whispers, like over and over again.
It's the only thing that you can actually make out the whisper saying. There's like a lot of it'll come back around. And actually, I couldn't figure out what I knew it was saying back around, but I couldn't hear the first part of it until it was very clear at the end of the episode what it was saying.
Yeah. And a fun fact, all those whispers, you can actually decode what they actually are saying. If you can actually, there's people that have like transcribed what the whispers are. They'll like go back and it's like, sometimes it's like reversed audio. Sometimes it's like audio that's played like standard way.
Are they in different languages at all?
Some, yes, I think.
Just because I think it was obvious that there have been other things that are in a variety of different languages, whether it's like Russo or some of the whispers before. That's why I wondered. But yes, that is a very key point. I'm happy you brought that up because Sawyer does go out into the jungle, hears those whispers, and then there is a moment where he stops Saeed and asks him, "What did you hear in the jungle?" And kind of presses Saeed a little bit on it. And Saeed says, "I heard whispers, but I don't think they were real." And he said, "Why did you hear them?" And Sawyer never confirms it, but I think it's obvious that Saeed knows that he did.
Another huge thing that I picked up on in this scene that I never did before is we've seen time and time again Sawyer use nicknames to kind of play down his respect level for a person.
Totally.
In this specific scene, he calls Saeed Mohammed.
Yeah.
But then when he starts talking about whispers, he calls him by his name, Saeed.
Yeah.
And he addresses him with respect because he needs something from Saeed.
I low-key caught on to that, and I'm happy that you brought it up because I feel like that was in the back of my mind without actually like confirming it. So I'm happy you brought that up because I did catch on to that, but I didn't write it down. I really feel like this is the tell for Sawyer. Anytime he truly needs something, he's going to treat you with a little bit of respect that's like implicit. It's not something that's going to be super explicit. It's not like he's always going to say, "Ma'am, how are you doing today?" Like it's not going to be like one of those things. If he's talking to Kate, he's not all of a sudden going to turn
like
into
sugar tits. Get over it.
Okay, Mel Gibson. But I really think that this is that's a really good piece of information that, for those of us that are watching for the first time can keep in mind as we continue to watch the show. Like, what are the things that he is doing potentially in the moment, like to know whether or not he's serious or if he's kind of
for sure
pulling people for a ride a little bit.
And, so sorry, go on.
No.
So Hibbs. Oh, that's what you're saying. You're I got ahead of myself. There's the woman in the hotel room.
Oh yeah. So they're making out and that kind of thing. And all of a sudden the light turns on and there's a guy there that stands and says, "I'm sorry, I couldn't let this go any further without embarrassing myself. And I had to say something now." And I wrote the note, "You couldn't pay me to stick around when a guy is just in the shadows in a hotel." Like the woman is far too attached to Sawyer to be like, "Are you going to be okay? I'll stay here with you." Girl, if I were that girl, I'd be like, first of all, fuck no. There's just a random guy sitting in the hotel room of the guy that I'm supposed to be like hooking up with. No, girl. I have to think about me. I got to GTFO out of this situation. Like there is no way in hell I would stick around. And she was trying way too hard to be on his dick.
Thirsty. Yeah.
She was thirsty as fuck. But she also was like doing that for like a means of like protecting him. And I'm like, no. If you go into a hotel and there's a guy randomly in the dark and clearly they have business to handle, stay far away from that dick. That is no dick that is worth it, girl. You better get the fuck out of there and never turn back and never look for it again.
So the guy that was in those shadows, his name is Hibbs.
Okay.
And in this flashback, they kind of go over how Hibbs says that he has found the actual Sawyer that conned Sawyer's family. And Sawyer's like, "Oh shit, this is my moment. I could finally get the revenge that I've been really wanting."
And it also sounds like that Sawyer doesn't really owe him anything. Like this guy kind of came out of the blue. And so what we kind of find out by the end of the episode is that this guy was kind of looking for a reason to hire Sawyer to beat up somebody or kill somebody on his behalf.
He conned the con man.
He conned the con man. So basically what he does is he tells Sawyer, like, I found the guy that ripped off your family, that ripped off your mother, who made who made your father kill your mother and then kill himself, essentially. And I found him, and I need you to, like, if you're interested, like, go down to Australia, where he is, and he runs this, like, basically food truck called Sweet Shrimp, and go down and if you want him, go kill him. And what we find out eventually is that this guy had no connection to Sawyer's background at all.
Yep.
So Sawyer takes the trip down to Australia. We see him meet with somebody in Australia to try to get arms and to get, a weapon and get ready to go. And this is a bit of foreshadowing in the scene where the guy's basically like, I have never had somebody ask for this weapon, and you better be prepared. Like, if you're going to ask for this weapon, you're going to be ready to kill, because if you aren't ready to kill somebody, then, like, this isn't the weapon for you. Which is funny to me. It's a fucking handgun. It's not like it's some bazooka shit. Yeah. Like, I just sat there and I was like, I don't know if this is just because it's Australia or whatever it is, and, like, not the US. And I grew up in, like, the US where, like, gun culture is just, like, absolutely just so accessible. But I just sat back and I was like, bro, you were saying this about a fucking pistol. Like, it's not like just some kind of, like, bazooka, like, oh, like, nobody takes a bazooka. It doesn't want to kill somebody with it. Like, it's just like, I just sat back and I was like, dude, you're talking about a pistol. You're talking about a Magnum. Like what are you talking about here, bro?
I thought it was really cool, though, in the scene. So obviously the message here is that, like, killing people stays with you, which is ironic because there is another, like, B plot of Charlie trying to get over the fact that he murdered Ethan. Yeah. And so it's weird, not weird, but it was funny to see someone else's flashback not only relate to Sawyer, but relate to the B plot as well as someone else.
I'm really happy that you bring this up, because the reason why I rate this about an 8 out of 10, it was mostly because of how well they were able to marry the A and the B plot together. Like, this really had such an, I remember growing up, my father said this to me multiple times, and it's something I've held on to for the rest of my life. And I continue to hope and pray every single day that is something. My dad has looked at me multiple times and has said, Beth, I really hope that you've never have to worry about taking another human life. Like, that sounds so weird, but it's like, whether it's through a car accident, whether it's through, like, shooting somebody or whatever, like, whatever. He's like, I really hope that is something you never have to worry about the emotional turmoil of doing. Okay. My dad is, to my knowledge, my dad was never done that. But
he's murdered.
My dad is the straight up boss and is murdered. No, just kidding. But it is one of those things that I think about often about, I really do hope that, like, there's never a situation accidentally or even purposely out of defense or whatever that I have to go through the process emotionally of dealing with the fact that I've taken a human life. I worry about the fact that I killed a spider 4 weeks ago. Like, you know what I mean? And this episode really talks about the impact of, like, what happens when you take the responsibility of playing, like, quote unquote, God in a situation where you end somebody's life, whether it's because they quote unquote deserved it, whether you're Charlie and this person has kidnapped you and tried to kill you and kidnapped somebody you care about and has killed somebody else who was in your compound and clearly deserved to be put to a stop. Or if you're Sawyer and you feel like you have this sense of revenge that this person in your mind has been the reason for everything that you've ever done in your life that's negative because he led to your family killing itself, essentially, right? And which we do find out at the end of the episode, this isn't actually the real Sawyer.
Wah, wah.
Which
Yeah.
don't you wish you could have confirmed that before you shut up? But whatever.
Yeah.
It is
He was
something that
blinded
I
by
think
revenge.
you're blinded by revenge 100%. So I guess just at this point, it makes sense maybe to just cover the rest of the
flashback.
The flashback, which
Yeah.
basically Sawyer finds his way to Australia. He hooks up with the guy, he gets a gun. He shows up to the Sweet Shrimp, kind of like food truck essentially at the side of the road. And first of all, I'm going to put it out there. He doesn't look angry. He looks like he's about to shit his pants. Like he just is. I'm so sorry to.
Probably was. He was scared shitless, probably.
Well, he's scared, but he's also sitting there like, my life has been focused on finding you and ending you. And you're faced with that. And you have to reconcile the idea that you're going to take another human life.
Yeah.
Right?
That's like the whole thing that the guy says. He's like, look a man in the eyes with a loaded gun and like you'll get to know who you really are or something like that. And that's kind of like the point here is that like we learn that Sawyer might not be the bloodthirsty killer that we think he is, because he is faced with someone who he thinks is the guy who murdered his entire family inadvertently, and he's not willing to kill the guy because he feels like it's not his purpose to kill this man.
At the end of the day, it's this idea of playing God.
Yeah.
It's this idea of I get to decide, me personally, I get to decide with my life to take somebody else's life out of the equation. And that is a really huge deal. I know people who have been in the military who have been forced to take lives, and it has been a situation that creates post-traumatic stress for the rest of their lives. Purely because we've been told that's the enemy over there. Go shoot them.
For sure, yeah.
Go blow them up. Go do something about it, right? When you were looking in the whites of the eyes of somebody that you have been hunting for the rest of your life and you're faced with that, that is such a... I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, this episode, I think, is the most intense that we've had so far. Purely because purely for this reason, at least for me, like, it really just makes you think... Like
you had a very visceral reaction to this episode. Like, I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
I cannot preface this enough. This is the one episode that Beth has had the most reaction to.
Y'all thought I had a visceral reaction to Claire, like Claire's episode. No. This, I mean, honest to God, this episode really just like affected me. As I watched it, I really truly, like, my heart went out to Sawyer, but at the same time, all I was doing was going, don't shoot him. Don't, come on. You're better than this. I wanted to root for him, which is so funny because if you remember the first few episodes, I did nothing but root against Sawyer.
Welcome to Lost, baby.
Shut up. Now this crazy. No, but it really is. I truly do believe, at the end of the day, I will always believe in the betterment of people. And I will always believe in the positive areas of people, even the most hateful, awful people, the people who have had the worst experiences of life, right? Or who might be otherwise justified in these kind of actions. And I truly was just super affected by this episode. I really felt like it was the most powerful. It was so incredibly well acted. The music, the way that it just was so intense and just amplified my feelings was just really great. So basically what we find is that Sawyer cannot in this moment actually take his life. And so you hear they're making connections. The guy is cooking his shrimp and is kind of talking to him. And he turns around to serve him the shrimp and Sawyer's no longer there. And all of a sudden you hear his car peel out and go away. And we then see Sawyer at a bar and he's drinking his feelings away. And who shows up at the bar other than
fucking Christian Shepherd,
Jack's father. Yeah. And this was another moment where I had a visceral reaction, which if you were watching the video version, it went like this.
Yeah, you were like, oh my God.
It's funny. Jack's father.
It was so funny too, because you hear Jack's father's voice and I could see you were like, Like you had that moment where you're like, wait a minute, that voice sounds familiar. Like, wait, what? Wait, what? And then you're like, oh my God.
Oh my God, it's Jack's father. Well, okay, so here's the other thing. I thought we were going to see here, because remember this was set up a couple weeks ago when we saw Boone's background that Sawyer gets taken into the police station. I thought what we were going to see was that Sawyer gets caught with the handgun that he's not supposed to have, and that's why he gets put in the police station. So I thought, if anything, that's the crossover we see with the characters. Yeah. I did not expect that we're going to see him interacting with Jack's father.
Yeah.
So we see him at a bar. Jack's father is apparently without a wallet, and they decide to continue to drink together. They're both Yanks. They're both talking about their experiences. And Jack's father basically says, I love my son. He's a great man. I forgive him for everything he does, but I'm a weak man and I cannot pick up the phone. If I wanted to right now, I could pick up the phone, call collect, and tell him, I forgive you. I love you. You're right. And everything would be okay. But I'm a weak man and I can't do that.
Yep.
What's keeping you from doing what you need to? Would what you want to do, would that bring you peace of mind in life? And Sawyer says yes. And he says, then do it. Otherwise, you're no better than me. Yep. And he says the line, you're going to have to remind me of this, even though I cheered it multiple times.
So basically, I don't know the exact line, but it's something along the lines of
better odds than the Sox winning the series or something.
Yeah, the Red Sox, winning the
Which, as a Yankees fan, I was here for. For those that don't know, and actually a lot of people don't realize this, up until the past couple...
I couldn't hear what you said.
What is it with Siri on my voice? Or am I?
She said, Yankee fan trash. That's what she said.
I'm sorry. I'm going to throw this fucking watch off the window. No. Okay. So for those that don't know, I actually am a huge baseball fan. I played softball throughout high school. I'm a generational Yankees fan, which means that like my great grandfather, my grandfather, my parents, all that kind of stuff are all Yankees fans. I'm there for me. Yankees fan, whatever. So y'all can hate me. I don't care. We have 27 wins in World Series. What you going to do about it and what? Anyway, so so this line comes out that says like something along the lines of like better odds than the Red Sox winning the World Series, which is Dylan brought up is actually really funny if we're going to bring it to real life, because when this season came about, they would have filmed this scene in 2004, which would have been right before the Red Sox actually won the World Series. So when this aired, it was a few short months after the Red Sox had already won the World Series. So like, poor example of what was going to happen. So especially the ALCS, just for anybody who's the baseball fan, the American League Champion Series, which was the Yankees versus the Red Sox, which is well known for a variety of reasons, including the Aaron Boone walk-off home run for the Yankees, but it eventually ended up with the Red Sox beating the Yankees and going on to the World Series. Boo. But whatever. So basically, what we see here is we get this first sense of this line, which is basically Jack's father saying that it's like his line of saying like when hell freezes over, essentially, right? Basically. But he says when the Red Sox beat or win the World Series. So we then see Sawyer in his flashbacks go back. It's pouring rain now. Again, I'm feeling like rain, even in the flashbacks, is very symbolic of like change, whether it's emotional or physical change, whatever the case might be. Yep. And you see him go back to the shrimp food truck, shoot him and say like, you're the Sawyer that killed my parents.
And he brings out the letter, and he's like, I'm trying to read the letter to him, and the guy's like, what the fuck are you?
And this guy is saying, and he goes, I'm the wrong guy. And he basically says like, oh, you've basically been conned, essentially. Yep. Like, I had nothing to do with this. The person, I was going to pay back the guy. What's his name? Sorry. Hibbs. I was going to pay back Hibbs. Like, I was going to do it. And this is where Sawyer realizes that he shoots the wrong guy. He basically did Hibbs's like dirty work for him without doing the proper knowledge. Like if he hadn't been so blinded by getting revenge and getting what he needed out of life and just done his due diligence and research, he would have realized he was being taken for a ride.
And this is where we also get the line as the fake Sawyer, as that guy is dying. He says, it'll come back around.
It'll come back around.
And he's like mentioning it to Sawyer. And I think this is why Sawyer is so shaken by this boar. Because I think he is thinking maybe this has something to do with it'll come back around, because this boar specifically is only fucking with Sawyer. It is eating only Sawyer's food. It is always like showing up wherever Sawyer is and fucking with them. And this could just be Sawyer's guilt manifesting in like a way of like, this boar, that's the problem, and it's not.
And not to jump too like in the middle of the episode and such, but this is importantly kind of referenced by the story when Locke shows up with Kate and Sawyer and tells the story about basically a foster. Was it his foster sibling? I don't remember the relationship.
I think, and I could be wrong about remembering this, he's talking about how his sister died at a young age and that the mom was stricken with grief.
It was his foster mom and his foster sister.
It might have been. I'm not sure. And
it wasn't true blood. And basically what ended up happening was that after his sister passed, there was this golden retriever that basically made itself into the home and looked and stared at his foster mother for like moments. And there was like an understanding. And then this dog slept in his foster sibling's bed for years until the mother passed away. And then it just kind of went on its way. And his mother which his mother then basically took that as a sign of like, this is my daughter, my foster daughter, whatever, reborn again to like be with me as a means of like managing her guilt for the situation. And Sawyer basically is like, oh, so you mean like that was your sister? And he's like, well, that'd be crazy, but that's what my mother believed. Yeah. And what I like about that line is that there have been multiple times, whether they just be like online posts or in real life, I feel like all of us have been touched by that moment where, like, for example, I have a lot of family members who really believe that like the cardinals outside their window are loved ones who have been reincarnated that have passed away, especially if you're Catholic in America. I know that that's a really big symbolism. The cardinals represent your loved ones that have passed away. I know that that's very prevalent among various native nations throughout the world, as well as if you believe in Hinduism, the different pillars, and as well as what's the other religion that believes in karma and such?
I don't know why I want to say Taoism, but I don't know if it's Taoism.
But a lot of these different religions believe in these different versions of reincarnation and such, right? And I love this idea. I think that what it is us looking for meanings and things that don't have meaning in order for us to process our feelings and our emotions about things, right? And so this is Locke's way of basically telling Sawyer, because we know how Locke feels about the island. I really feel like this is Locke's way of telling Sawyer the island is trying to help you manage your feelings and emotions in your past in order for you to grow and move forward. And if we take my theory about this being a purgatory, right, where we're trying to work through our emotions, we're trying to work through the things that maybe we haven't settled in our real life. This is the big hurdle that Sawyer has. He has spent his entire life trying to get this revenge. He thinks he gets it, finds out he murders the wrong guy in Australia, and then he finds himself on this island. Is essentially what I think the timeline is, right?
Yeah.
So he's probably still dealing with the fact that, and we do see him have a moment with Kate where they're doing basically, first of all, I need to get into this. Okay.
Kate was fucking weird this episode.
Not only is Kate fucking weird, The game is called Never Have I Ever. It's not called I Never, you dumb shit.
Yeah.
He was like, I can tell you never been to college. Bitch, I can tell you never been to college because it's called Never Have I Ever.
Yeah.
Never have I ever. I wrote it right here in bold letters. Never have I ever, Sawyer. It's not called I Never. Fuck off with that knowledge.
I'm wondering if there's like a copyright on Never Have I Ever.
No, there isn't. It is a fucking college game that is made up by drunk college people that has in no way ever been trademarked. It's not like Paris Hilton saying
Are you
that's
sure? Because literally holding up my screen, because I haven't bought a thing, I have a board game called Never Have I Ever. So I don't know.
Okay, when was that made, Dylan?
2001.
Shut up.
I'm kidding. 2013.
I was just gonna say that was that made in 2001, you bitch.
No, but I actually am glad you brought up that scene. I fucking love that scene.
That scene's amazing.
It gets
that
so
scene
intense.
Is amazing.
It gets so intense.
I need to 100% praise the writers for this scene.
Oh, it's so good.
Here's the reason why. All I'm thinking about is the writers are sitting there in a room saying, we need a mechanism of way for Kate and Sawyer to have a basic understanding while also revealing a little bit about themselves.
Yep.
What better way to do that than a drinking game called Never Have I Ever. It's not called I Never, you fucking bitch. Anyway, secondly, the other issue I have with this is Sawyer drinks way more than one little bottle.
Yeah,
he literally goes and drinks an entire little bottle, and then all of a sudden the next time he's drinking, it's like he's barely had any. And I was like, bitch, I clocked how much you drank, whatever. That's the other thing I wrote here is just has another mini bottle.
Well,
the bottom.
I want to shout out the writer of this episode, who is Drew Goddard.
Drew, great job.
Would go on to write several episodes in season 3 and 4, and also was the writer of Cloverfield. The movie. The movie, yeah.
Okay. Cloverfield, I've watched multiple times, and can I be honest? There's a part of me that kind of wants to watch it with you and Nigel next week.
I fucking love Cloverfield.
I would like to watch it with you two. Just because here's the reason. Okay, in a sick world, I don't know why. I've watched that movie multiple times and it felt very effective because they've done a really good job of showing like that is an actual bodega that's like on the corner of this street or whatever in Manhattan. Yeah. And there's a specific scene in Cloverfield where people are trying to cross the Brooklyn Bridge. For those that don't know, Manhattan is an island, which means, and for people who do know, there's what's called bridge and tunnel people, right? So people who have to take a bridge or a tunnel to get into Brooklyn or to Manhattan every single day. So if you live in Queens, if you live in Brooklyn, Staten Island's his own island, or New Jersey, you have to take a bridge or a tunnel to get into New York City, aka Manhattan. There is a scene in Cloverfield where they are trying to go over the Brooklyn Bridge, a very big tourist landmark to walk across. Yeah. And the monster destroys the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
And that is just so viscerally scary because you're like, holy crap. In a situation, there's no way to escape Manhattan, right? It's one of the things that was scariest about 9/11. You had these people who were like, there's literally no way for me to escape this island.
Yeah.
When they closed the bridges, when they closed the tunnels and millions of people were stranded on a few couple miles worth of land. And that has always been visceral. But I say that and then I'm like, I want to watch it with you guys before we go to Manhattan. It is a great movie. It's a great movie.
Shout out also, have you ever seen 10 Cloverfield Lane?
I have not, and I really want to. That's the one where they're in the bunker,
good.
right?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a great ass movie. But we don't talk about Cloverfield Paradox. It never exists. It wasn't a thing.
I didn't even hear about it, so it's good.
It's so bad.
But all that said, yes, praise to the writer.
One more quick thing. There is a ton of crossover between Cloverfield and Lost because they are both products of J.J. Abrams. So
I didn't know that Lost is J.J. Abrams.
Yeah. So there are, I'm not going to say because it's kind of a spoiler. There are some things that show up in season 2 and 3 that also show up in Cloverfield, like background items. And when we get there, we'll get there and I'll explain what they are. It's pretty fun stuff. But we get to this, the specific scene that we were talking about with the Never Have I Ever. Love how great the scene was acted.
Yes.
And B, how intense it gets because it starts off as some silly fun where Kate's just going in expecting to flirt with Sawyer. And then it slowly becomes a dominance game where they're trying to one up each other and how fucked up they can like make the other person feel about like their past and like things that they've done. And
but also get a sense of who is the other person really.
Agreed. And that's what I love.
I love it so much. This is a perfect mechanism for the writers to write, right? Yeah. It is I honestly, hand to God, I think this is probably my favorite scene we've ever seen out of Lost so far.
It's good. Yeah.
It's so good. I literally, as I was watching it, I could hear myself in the writer's room being like, how do we get these characters to do this? Oh, let's do it through a drinking game. Sawyer would be the person who has all the little bottles of liquor left over. Like he would have stored that. Kate would be the person to be able to get him to let go of those bottles. Like, how do we do this? I mean, like, honestly, chef's kiss to the writers for the scene. I truly think this is great. And I love both hands off to Josh Holloway and to Evangeline Lilly for the acting in the scenes. This is exactly it.
But I also want to point out how fucking weird Kate is in this episode because before that moment, she's just so like like about everything, and it's very weird. Like they don't know what to do with Kate. They don't.
No. It's very clear that they either have different writers every single episode, or they have like, first of all, they either have different writers every episode, or they don't have a woman writer to write a strong woman character. Like what they like, if you're gonna have a non-woman writing this, get Joss Whedon. Sorry. Like
just it's so bad. Like I just don't understand how inconsistent you can make a character.
And it's so frustrating too, because she's clearly somebody who has just such an interesting background and has such an interesting sense of self that they haven't been able to fully develop here on the island. It's like she's lost herself on the island. Yeah. And if that is actually the direction you want to go with the character, that's actually quite legitimate. Just write it more clearly, because you can't give me one episode she's standing up for herself and blah, 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 blah. If she has truly lost herself in this situation, write it as such and be consistent with it.
Agreed completely. Especially that one moment where she's talking with Jack and he is discussing the making out scene that happened between Kate and Sawyer back when Sawyer was getting tortured. And she says, I only made out because torturing didn't work. And I'm like, you lying sack of shit. I was like, no. You tongued the fuck down Sawyer because you wanted to. And it's like,
no.
It's just weird. I'm like, why would you lie about that? Just
the reason why she did that, though, is honestly to have a power move in front of Jack. Right?
I guess, yeah. That makes sense.
It's just, I'm happy for that moment, but I simultaneously think like it doesn't align with like what her relationship with Jack is supposed to be. She's very submissive when it comes to Jack.
Yeah, she is.
Okay, hold on. If the writers wrote her to be a fucking kinky brat, I'm here for it. Like if she wanted to be a
she
brat,
pulls out ropes and she's like, rope bunny.
if she is a sub in a dom sub relationship but plays a brat, like I'm here for it. But what I hate is that one episode she's a brat, the other episode she's a dom, and then all of a sudden she's just like helpless. And I feel like, yeah, sure. I think that we've all felt like those variety of emotions, but like it doesn't make for good character development in a TV show to like not have an understanding of these characters when specifically the male characters are so much well defined in many ways. You know what I mean? Especially the ones that she's interacted with. We know who Sawyer is. We know his motivations. We have a pretty good handle on what Jack and his motivations are, right? Who the fuck is Kate? And I think that some of that is really important. I love that there's some mystery to who the fuck is Kate, but it does come at some of the expense of what her character development is.
Agreed. And then the thing that's motivating Kate to help Sawyer is because there's one gun that is missing from the gun case, and we learn that it's Sawyer's. And weirdly, Jack is like, okay, whatever, I don't care.
Again, okay, this is one of the issues I had with the episode, which is like, again, inconsistent writing. When we compare this to The Nanny, it's traditionally the same writers every single episode. So there's a little bit level of consistency. We have talked about even with Niles that sometimes there's like, oh, now we have horny Niles, then we have like not so horny Niles or whatever the case is, right? I truly believe like we get whiplash with some of these characters. And the fact that Jack just like doesn't give a shit that Sawyer has one of the guns when he was so
bad at shooting,
adamant for not giving people guns in the episode previously, especially Sawyer, who like he was most adamant about not giving Sawyer and Kate guns in the episode before. And also he just like is fully showing Kate where he's hidden the chest or like the briefcase and his guns in this episode. Like what? Like she could easily just steal the key from you. And
there was
like
an entire episode devoted to the fact that he didn't want Kate to have a gun.
It just it's so out of the like this is something that like I don't know if this is now like us watching this in 2021 and like not when it was going live or whatever.
It's inconsistent.
But my God, come on. Like you've done so many beautiful things to make this episode like or like this series just like so involved and detail oriented. I feel like what the fuck when it comes to this. Like there's just some glaring things that I'm like, what are you doing?
Another thing that I want to make sure that we touch on is before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I want to go to the Charlie B plot just so we can kind of talk about that one. And then I also want to talk about some theories that you might have.
Yeah.
So Charlie in this episode is dealing with his own form of grief.
Okay.
Of sorts. So he has this side plot where he's being very standoffish to Claire, and we don't know why.
Also, I feel like this is whiplash.
Again, agreed. Very much whiplash. It feels very strange that he would just be so standoffish. I understand that he's like dealing with grief, but by the end of the episode, we learn that he's might not be dealing with grief, or he's dealing with grief in his own way.
Yeah.
We're not quite sure what's going on.
It's not even grief;
there.
it's guilt.
Yeah, it's more of guilt.
Yeah,
because he says himself, "I'm glad I would kill him again. Like if I saw him, I'd kill him again." So it's not that. Like I don't have.
It's not that he's sad or feeling remorseful over killing him. It's just that this idea of like taking another human life is still like a pretty big thing.
But I really loved this moment where Saeed tells a story of his own the first time he's killed someone and how he was tasked with having to do be a part of a firing squad to kill someone. I think he said that he knew was innocent or something like that, or someone that he wasn't sure was guilty.
I thought he said that he knew he was guilty, but
I don't know. He might have.
I thought he said like he knew he was guilty, and like it was kind of like a black and white kind of case, but like he still felt bad about taking a life, even though it was like clearly guilty by the state.
Yeah, and he talks about like how he had a hard time sleeping. He kept seeing the image of the guy everywhere he went.
Yeah.
And so that affected him. And then Charlie's basically like, well, that's cool for you, but that's not how I feel. Like it was almost to the point where he's like, I don't feel remorse, and that's the issue.
Yeah, you and
Like,
I have very different experiences is basically what the key
Yeah.
there was. But what I like what Saeed said was, I want you to know that you're not alone.
mhm.
Like don't isolate yourself with these feelings. You've got people who have similar experiences, who have taken lives, who have been in situations where it truly is life and death, that maybe have been coerced to feeling like this is what they have to do, that you can identify with. And I like this moment
Yeah.
with Saeed because, I mean, Saeed, I would say out of all the characters is probably my favorite.
Yeah, he's really good.
The reason why I like him the most is because it's not like he pretends to be innocent. He recognizes where he has made the most mistakes in his life, where he has played God, where he has messed up on various different levels, regardless of whatever the situation was, regardless of whatever, like, oh, he had to do it because his family would have been put at risk in, Iraq otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of that, he recognizes the amount of the essential nature of human sanctity. He remembers like why it's important to respect human life. He remembers like what it feels like to take a life, to enact all these different things without so much political control, but needing to do it anyway. I really love this about Saeed, and that he's
Yeah.
able to take those past experiences and apply them to the people here on the island.
Yeah.
I love him for that. The only thing I don't like about him is the fact that he likes Shannon.
Then he wants to fuck Shannon.
Fuck Saeed. I mean, I guess we have to have gray characters who have issues, but like, come on, what an issue to have.
He's got a thing for big, fucked up, dumb bitches.
Okay, well, time out. She doesn't even have big titties, so like, why?
That's
As if that was the real reason. She doesn't even have big boobies.
Come on, Saeed, you can do better. You can do way better.
I have bigger tits.
Yeah, she's like, fuck me. Saeed, you can fuck me.
Listen, I would take a bullet for. I think Saeed's so hot.
No, Saeed, there's so many hotties. So there is one element before we get into your theories that we do need to talk about, and it's the very end of the episode. Sawyer connects that.
With the boar.
Not that.
Oh.
He connects that he knew Jack's father because Jack says the same line that Christian does.
The Red Sox.
Yeah, and Sawyer's like, oh shit. I met
your father at the bar. Your father's the reason why I killed this dude who wasn't even real, blah, 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 blah. And Jack says, why did you want to know this about my father? And he says, I don't care, or whatever, walks away.
Yeah. So this is the first character that has a connection to someone that remembers or knows or something.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see if that turns into anything.
So fun stuff here. I wrote Sawyer with Jack's dad. Did he kill Jack's dad? Accident. So what we kind of learned, so what we know a little bit about Jack's dad is that there was some kind of accident that we assume alcohol was involved in, right?
Yep.
And we know it happened in Australia, and that Jack happened to be in Australia when that happened, but that the hotel couldn't get in touch with Jack's dad. I think that what we're going to find, so we're going to get into my theories by way of this, by the way.
Okay, go for it.
I think that night, what we see is Sawyer drinking, and he drinks quite heavily, and therefore makes Jack's dad drink quite heavily. I think that Sawyer doesn't maybe necessarily know this, but that he's the reason because of the drinking that maybe Jack gets behind, or Jack's dad gets behind the wheel of a car and drives and kills himself. Or because like Sawyer's the one that fueled him with the whiskey that night. I think it was whiskey. I wouldn't be shocked about that. And then I said, will Sawyer see Jack's dad on the island?
That would be
because
pretty
we
creepy.
know that we have seen Jack's dad appear to Jack. We know that Jack's dad is dead and that his body was on the plane. I am still thoroughly convinced that Jack's dad has a purpose on this island, whether it be a purgatory thing, whether it's to lead Jack to certain things, to help Jack work through certain things. I kind of work that Jack's dad is akin to the boar to Sawyer, like as a means of working through things.
Yeah.
Maybe Sawyer sees Jack's dad as well. And that's what brings
crazy.
up, that would be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And then we also find out that the whispers are saying it'll come back around. And that's what the
guy was
the
saying.
wrong guy that he shot said as his last words before he died.
Yeah.
And I think that it'll come back around, will come back around in some capacity. But it kind of makes you wonder if the whispers that they're hearing are the last words of things that haunt them.
Okay.
So maybe Rousseau is hearing the last words of our nursery rhyme, which is why she's written it in so many places. Maybe what Saeed was hearing, because I don't think we ever got clarity of what Saeed hears, and it could be because it's in a different language, are the words that like Nadia, I think it was Nadia, that was her name, right? Was saying before she left him or died or whatever the case is.
Yeah.
I think that if Jack were to hear voices, maybe it's the last thing his father says to him. I think that those are the things that like stick with them as reasons for what their struggle is for reconciling things in the afterlife.
That makes sense. That makes complete sense. There is one other thing that I wanted to just briefly say. We finally got to see the raft for a half second.
Girl, that looked good too.
Yeah, that's a good ass raft.
I will say this. It looked better than Tahiti Island 2, which I popped on 4th of July with my cousins.
Yeah. Did you ever get it patched?
That is a question for John Dixon. I have not. I've since moved on from the North Country down to New York City.
True.
So I don't know.
I will say before we get into MVP and LVP, next episode is called In Translation. Who do you think it's about?
Jin.
Yes. It is a Jin-centric episode.
Bitch, you know why I'm saying that? You know why I'm saying that? It's because he knows fucking English. He knows English and he's going to put it in translation. I know this. I know this.
All right. We'll have to see if your theory is correct. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this episode is really good because it ties back to Sun's centric episode. So it's kind of like you see it from Jin's point of view, like things that happen. So will you change your thoughts on Jin? Will you hate him even more?
I probably will hate him even more. I think I will say this though. He has warmed up to me a little bit over the past episodes, but purely because we don't see too much with him and Sun, and we see Sun standing up for herself a little bit more. I will fully say that if the episode is centered around him trying to quote unquote put Sun in her place, that hatred will come right back. If it is more about him growing and like letting her be an independent, powerful woman, then you better believe I'm about to drive. I'm not going to drive a stand truck. That's not what's going to happen. But I'll be like, okay, I see you. Okay.
All right. Who is your MVP and LVP for this episode?
I'm going to give. Oh, this is hard.
It's tough. This is a very morally gray episode.
This is actually really tough. I think that my MVP. It's actually weird because it's so Sawyer focused, and I actually don't think I'm going to give Sawyer LVP or MVP.
Yeah. Which makes sense, I think, for this specific episode.
Yeah, because like there's so many morally gray areas that we see to Sawyer that like actually helps his image in a lot of ways, but isn't enough to like be like, you better work, queen, and give him like MVP.
Yeah.
I think for LVP, I actually think I'm going to give it to Kate.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
I really feel like what I love is that we do see this vulnerability between her and Sawyer, but I feel like partially it's part of the way that the character is written, but I feel like there's so much manipulation of trying to control Sawyer that like to a point that's like doesn't align with what I think her character should be going for. So that's why it's an LVP.
And now she has a blank check that she can use against Sawyer at any point. I'm
going to give MVP to Locke. Okay. This is a very weird choice, and I recognize this, but I really truly feel like the small amount that we see Locke in this situation in this episode fuels the reconciliation that Sawyer needs to not shoot the boar at the very end of the episode.
That's great.
It helps him, give him some kind of clarity. It gives him some kind of reassurance that he doesn't need to shoot this boar to feel better. It's like he needs to accept that the boar is there and just move forward, which is symbolism for it. He needs to accept that there is this issue that has been eating at him for a long time and accept that that is something that is just a part of his life and then move on. And by accepting it, by acknowledging it, it like won't take up a big part of his life. Like I actually think that like Locke is the reason why that there's a reconciliation there.
No, that makes complete sense. That's actually a great pick. I was going to pick Saeed, but I think yours is actually, it makes more sense.
I would love to pick Saeed, and I actually did consider that, but just because Saeed didn't actually weigh into the main part of the plot was the reason why I didn't. But Saeed, we do see more of Saeed in this episode than we do Locke. So like I can understand the Saeed pick, but for me, it's got to be Locke. And I should say too that the next episode of The Nanny is called Sunday in the Park with Fran. So we forgot to do this. What do you think Sunday in the Park with Fran is about?
Did they go into the park with Fran?
TBH. No, TBD. I mean, not TBH.
I'm going to say Fran takes the kids to the park, but it's like Central Park.
Okay.
And she shows them other aspects of the city, like outside of where they're from. So it's like, you want to see what the real city's like? I'll take you to the park.
Yeah, far off, to be honest with you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, but it's not the part of it.
Nice. Well, this has been lovely. This is, I think, our longest episode of Hot Mess Moments, but it was. I
feel like we had over 2 hours with Mike Bloom.
We might have actually, but this, I will say, we had so much good combo.
This is great. I have a great time.
Yeah.
Also, like, what a wonderful way to break into my new apartment. And by break into my new apartment, and break in my new apartment. That's what I meant to say.
There you go. She actually doesn't live there. She just broke into that place.
I just found some random empty place and just moved all my shit in.
Well, thank you all so much for checking out this episode of Hot Mess Moments. If you want to follow Hot Mess Moments on Twitter, it is at Hot Mess Moments. If you have any kind of comments, questions, inquiries, send them on over to Augusta111 if they are nanny focused, and send them over to me if they are lost focused. I could get into viewer comments, but they're like older viewer comments, so I'm gonna wipe the slate clean. Leave comments on this specific episode, and we'll cover them in the next episode.
Love that. Yep.
Well, actually, that's not going to work because we're doubling up on episodes. So
no, but leave them into the next episode because we will anything that was for this episode or the episode before, we will
we'll cover
them.
Yeah, we'll make sure that they get covered.
But also make sure to leave a rating and review, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts. It does help to support the podcast. It's an easy, free way to support us. So leave your 5-star ratings and reviews there.
Yeah, it helps us boost that algorithm a bit, get some new Lost and Nanny viewers up in here. And my name's Dylan.
My name's Beth.
I was like, is she gonna okay? And we'll see you next week for another Hot Mess Moment.
Bye.